everyone, my name is Catherine and lately I've been applying to a lot of jobs, which means a lot of interviews and also unfortunately a lot of rejections. So today I'm going to talk about my interview experience with Deloitte. If you guys don't know me, or if you couldn't tell by my accent, I am from New Zealand. So naturally I applied to the graduate program in New Zealand. However, I was kind of rejected pretty much straight away, so I didn't make it to the interview stage. However, I also applied to Deloitte in Australia and somehow I managed to get an interview. So yeah, today I'm just going to talk about my experience and maybe just a bit of background in terms of like how I got to the interview stage. I actually applied to the graduate program for Deloitte Australia way back in February. Deloitte put out a ton of graduate roles every single year. I remember being on the website and being pretty overwhelmed because there was just so many, and I actually ended up applying to about 3. Honestly, I would have applied for more, but I just couldn't be bothered. And looking back, it was actually a good idea because I saw somewhere on their website that said you should only apply to about 3 roles, otherwise it kind of just looks like you're just sending out random applications and you don't really like care about any of them. First tip, I guess, apply to like no more than 3 jobs because you don't want to seem like you're just sending out random applications. After that, I got an email asking me to do some psychometric assessments, and I don't remember a ton about them, but I do remember I think they were gamified, or yeah, I don't think they were super difficult. So yeah, not much advice for those, just try your best and hope you get in. I can't remember if I got an email, but anyways, basically I was rejected from there. I think a couple weeks later or a couple months down the line, around April time, I got a call from a recruiter from Deloitte Australia saying like, hey, unfortunately you didn't get into these specific roles, but we still think you're a good candidate and we have some roles coming up that we think would be a good fit for you. At that point I was very surprised because I didn't even realize that was a thing. A lot of the time companies have roles that they don't even advertise, so yeah, that's definitely a huge bonus tip, like a network, because a lot of the time these roles aren't even like online. So if you don't know people or you don't get yourself out there, like you're not even going to know about it. The recruiter basically said that they were going to email me some jobs and then they never ended up doing it. So I basically just forgot about it, like I didn't think too much of it. I figured, I don't know, maybe they just forgot to do it, and I couldn't really be bothered following up because, to be fair, like it wasn't like I was desperate to get a job, right now. I think a couple weeks later, the same recruiter called me back again, and unfortunately I missed their call. I couldn't call them back because they were in Australia. So I basically went online and I found like this online form where I could contact the recruitment team, and I was like, hey, I'm in New Zealand, I can't really call you, can you like send me an email or call me back? So we basically scheduled another call. This call lasted about 5 minutes. She just called me and she was like, hey, tell me a bit about yourself, like what kind of jobs are you looking for? And then she basically told me about like the one role that was available, and then she was like, yeah, so the assessment center is in like 2 days. And then I was like, I actually don't know if I'm available because I had a class at university and I'm not really one to like skip classes, especially not that week because it was like the week before the assessment, so we were going to be going over important stuff. She was basically just like, well, it's an assessment center, so everyone's booked in and we can't change the time, so you just got to figure something out. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. Like, I'm not really going to say no to Deloitte. Yeah, so she basically just ended up sending me like a very vague job description and then just the link for the assessment center. Just insert a screenshot of the assessment center, essentially like the agenda. But it was just on Zoom, and when I got in, it was kind of overwhelming because there was like 30 people in the Zoom call. And for a second I was like, oh my god, am I going to be competing with all of these people? But basically what happened is they kind of combined a bunch of different like jobs into one, if that makes sense. So there was like intern positions from all sorts of different lines of like their business, for example like accounting, tax, consulting. It wasn't just like 30 people for this one job. We got into the Zoom and then the recruiter was there and they were just like giving a main overview. So that was about 10 minutes just talking about Deloitte, a bit about the graduate program. To be honest, I felt this was kind of unnecessary because like, I mean, we all know what Deloitte does. Like everyone that applied, I'm sure, had done their research and figured out like what the grad program is like and stuff. But I guess that's kind of nice though to like ease into the interview so you're not just like answering questions straight up. Yeah, so that was about 10 minutes. And then after that, we went into like our little breakout rooms. It was kind of just like a small group of people and then I guess one manager from that service line or kind of place that you applied for. So my breakout room was only 3 people, so it was 2 other students myself, and then the manager. So 4 altogether, but like 3 candidates, if that makes sense. First of all, we started off with intros. So essentially you just have to say like, hey, this is me, you know, this is what I'm studying, and I go to this uni or whatever. And we basically jumped straight into it. They showed us this case study. It was about like 3 startup companies, and we had to kind of choose which one we would invest in. It was about 10 minutes reading time, and then we kind of just discussed it amongst ourselves. Personally, I think I did okay. I probably could have been a bit more focused. I felt like I didn't really read it super carefully. I guess I found it a bit hard to concentrate like in that situation. Read it and then I basically gave my arguments and we kind of discussed it, and I felt like as a group we worked pretty well. And then afterwards we kind of had to present to the persons. I kind of messed up because I thought we were doing 5 minutes each, like 5 minutes of speaking each, and then I realized it was 5 minutes altogether. Make sure that you listen to the instructions very carefully and you like read the case very carefully. That was probably one of my downfalls, just like not paying attention to detail as much as I could have been. And then yeah, that's basically the case study. It was about 15 minutes long, pretty chilled. I felt like having a small group was definitely a lot easier because I have done other assessment centers where there's like 8 people in one group and it's really hard to just get a word in. So having that small group dynamic was really important. In terms of advice, I would say you don't necessarily need to be like the only person that speaks, but it's definitely helpful to, obviously you do want to put your best foot forward and you want to make sure that you are saying things that are like intelligent and smart, but also asking other people for their opinions as well. After that, it was time for the one-on-one interviews. There was about 20 minutes per person, and the way it worked is like there was 3 rounds. Essentially, if you were in the first round, then you have your interview straight away, but if you weren't having your interview, you were in like the main room and they got a bunch of other graduates to kind of answer questions. I thought this was a very nice way of doing it because basically got to kind of interact with other people and learn a bit more about Deloitte and like the positions before you did your interview. And this is kind of random, but I distinctly remember one of the graduates referring to the vacation program as the vackie, and I was like, if that ain't the most Aussie thing I've heard in my life. The Q&A with the graduates was basically just going on in the background while the other interviews were going on. So I was actually in the 3rd round of interviews. We sat there for like 40 minutes not doing much. I actually ended up turning my camera off and I wasn't really super engaged in the Q&A, which I don't really know if affected my outcome, but the recruiter did say like if you want to leave and then come back for your interview, like that's fine. So I don't think that had an impact. When I got to my interview, I was pretty tired at this point. It was like probably almost 6 o'clock in the evening because they were doing it in Australia obviously, so New Zealand's like a couple hours later. To be honest, I wasn't too nervous. Like the manager dude that was interviewing us the whole time, he seemed like very chill and just calm dude. I think a lot of us, including myself, tend to put companies like Deloitte on a pedestal and we think, oh my god, like it's gonna be so tough, it's gonna be really difficult, like they're gonna ask just a ton of hard questions, but that really wasn't the case. I mean, I think the process to get an actual interview is definitely quite competitive. Like they did say there was about 27,000 applicants, like just in Australia. To get an interview is pretty tough, but once you're there, they know you're capable and they know that you're intelligent, so I think it's more about like fit, I guess. With my interview, it started off pretty chill, pretty standard. Honestly, like my interview to be a barista at Starbucks was more difficult. Yeah, you really have nothing to worry about. I would say if you do have an interview coming up, just try and relax and stay calm and not be too nervous. Started off being, tell me about yourself, and then it was like, what are you studying? You know, basically running through all your past experiences. Like if you've done an internship, definitely be ready to talk about that and be ready to talk about your responsibilities and specifically try and relate it to the job that you're applying for. Probably something I didn't do too well. And then also just very standard questions like your, you know, strengths, your weaknesses. Tell me about a time you worked with like a difficult team member. You know, a time you overcame a challenge, really just standard stuff. And I found it was quite conversational as well. Like the guy definitely didn't just stick to a script, like he was just asking things that he was curious about. Like I remember he spent like 5 minutes just asking me about Bunnings because I worked at Bunnings Warehouse, and he was just, I don't know, he was just super curious. Like he was like, how do you guys remember like where all the stuff is? Do you get trained, or like how do you know? And I was like, I don't really want to talk about this, dude, like because the training at Bunnings is really, it's not it. Like I don't want to be like, they don't train us at all and we just got to figure it out. So I was kind of like, yeah, there's a lot of learning on the job. So it's very chill, very conversational. Towards the end, they basically ask if you have any questions, and then it just like morphed into like a conversation. After the interview, I felt pretty good, honestly. I felt like I did my best and I had a chance. Like, you know, sometimes when you do an interview and you can tell like this is terrible, it wasn't that bad, but I wouldn't say it was like amazing either. I kind of felt like I did okay. Let's see what happens. And then basically they said they were going to tell us, I think, within a week, and then actually within the next day. So literally less than 24 hours, I got an email saying I did not get through to the next round. So that was super quick, and I got a shout out to the HR team at Deloitte because that really is efficient. I definitely do respect that. There's a lot of companies where I've done interviews and they just literally ghosted me, like I've never heard anything. So the fact that they got back to me within 24 hours, like, rate that very highly. Unfortunately, I didn't get through to the next round. So basically the assessment center is kind of the second to last stage. So then after that you have your like partner or director interview, and then you basically get an offer. That's kind of how the process works. Obviously I didn't get in, so I'm probably not the best person to be getting advice, but here I am anyway. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I wanted to make it because really I don't see a lot of videos like this out on the internet. I guess if you've made it into the company, you probably don't want to talk about it, but even of people that like didn't get in, I really don't hear people speak about it. So hopefully this video was interesting to you guys. If you have any questions or queries, feel free to chuck them down in the comments and I'll get back to you guys ASAP. But yeah, that's it for today. Bye.